That day, as usual, I was sitting in my room trying to record this stupid video. What am I supposed to do? He'll kill me if I don't record everything in time. The first thought that occurred to me was to close the door. I managed to do it right in front of his nose, but he was banging on it so hard that I thought that the door was going to fly off its hinges. I think he's gone. I'm so scared. But a minute later, he began to break into the room with an axe. No, don't! After the accident, Dad changed. A year ago, a truck crashed into our car. My mother covered me with her body and died on the spot. My father's arm was badly damaged, and then he had it amputated. Because of this, he was immediately fired, and he gave this company 20 years of his life. I felt sorry for him. Dad was depressed, but I tried to be strong and I supported him as much as I could. Even though I cried into my pillow almost every night, that's when I started making YouTube videos. I wanted a distraction. Moreover, I was pretty good at it. I didn't even notice how the first fans and first money from ads appeared. I shared my success with my father. He hugged me for the first time in a long time and called me a good girl. I almost cried with happiness. He started spending a lot of time with me, asking me what I was doing, and we became very close. Dad also became interested in YouTube. He followed all the trends and subscribed to new channels. As a joke, I decided to show my dad what real popularity is, and just for fun, I brought out the formula of the most successful YouTube project. It turned out something between the keeping up with the Kardashians and trashy videos with challenges. With his eyes burning, Dad declared that he understood everything and ran to his room. He was thrilled. I haven't seen him like this. One morning, I was going to school, but the door was locked and my father calmly said that he had transferred me to homeschooling. When I asked why would he do that, he solemnly announced that now I don't have time for school because today we are launching a super successful YouTube show. This was way too much. I got angry and suggested that my father find a job for his age and leave YouTube for teenagers. And he didn't even react. A week later, it was even worse. I was sitting in the kitchen having breakfast when some people in dirty shoes came into the house. My father was with them. They searched every corner of the house and gave Dad a check. What? Did Dad just sell our house? And there's more. I got a text message saying that all the money was withdrawn from my bank card, but I earned them on YouTube myself. That was too much. I wanted to find out what was going on, but my father just confronted me with the fact that we were moving. Gosh! For the sake of the show, my father went all in, spending all the money to rent this luxury estate, as he called it. Although it was actually just a wreck. When we went inside, I could barely hold back my tears. Yeah, once this huge house was inhabited by rich people, but now it barely stood together. Of all the rooms it had, only mine, where the shooting of the so-called show was supposed to take place, was renovated. After a week in this terrible house, I decided to talk to my subscribers live for the first time. I did have time to answer a couple of questions when I heard my dad coming to me. My father was acting weird. He said everything was almost ready and our life would change soon. It looked pretty scary. The next day, he cut off the Wi-Fi. He set the access to the network on time. I didn't recognize my daddy anymore. But the most hell was waiting for me ahead. We started shooting a live blog based on my father's script. Now, meet me, Nikki, the spoiled daughter of rich parents with bipolar disorder and aggressive behavior. My father wrote out every word and movement and made sure I followed the script. He made me do crazy things like jumping in an ice bath, shave my eyebrows, eat worms, and I couldn't even object. He immediately went mad. I started to think about escape, but I felt sorry for my dad. I justified his behavior with the stress and I hoped that everything would pass soon. So I tried to be nice on camera and believed in the best. I think that's why I got such an extensive fan club. Because of my fear, I used to wake up from nightmares in the middle of the night. It seemed as if the show's growing success and the money had driven my father completely mad. He hired bodyguards, a housemaid, and a chef. They all were participating in shootings. Dad himself played the role of the butler. I felt like I was in a horror movie. The only good thing about this hell was watching Jamie. We became friends, and he quickly realized that I was a hostage in this house. One day, Jamie and I decided to bake cakes, and he immediately took out a pack of almond flour. No, no, no! I have a terrible allergy to almonds. I was so wrapped up with Jamie that I forgot about airing with a cool beauty blogger. At that moment, my father crept up behind me. He seemed to be trying to frighten me as a joke and suddenly grabbed me by the shoulders. And I suddenly leaned to the side and hit my forehead on the corner of the closet. It was so painful. My father started yelling. There was a red mark on the forehead from the blow left, which by the evening will become a bruise, and everything should be perfect. I trudged off to cover marks. The earring was tense, my head ached from the blow, and I was trying to fit the image of a problem-rich woman. Kat asked me to wash off my makeup. I resisted for a long time. My father waved his hands in the background, making it clear that I would never wash it off. But I had to comply. Kat pretended not to notice the bruise. She was joking and reading random comments. And one of them was, "Did someone beat you up?" I jumped on the spot. And I think it was obvious that I was hiding something. My father never laid a hand on me. And the bruise was the last straw. It's settled. I'm running away tonight. After the success with the earring, my dad was so happy that he forgot to lock my door. This was a chance. At night, I started to make my way to the back exit and was almost there. But the guard was sleeping in the kitchen. I tried to get around him, but I hit the dishes and everything fell to the floor. Then I rushed for the door as fast as I could. I ran out into the street, but right before the fence, the guard caught up with me. I was imprisoned again. The next airing was a week later. I looked frankly bad and with a stained smile told another crazy story from my life. And in one of the comments, I saw, "If you need help, start talking about dresses." I immediately opened the door and pulled out my dresses, and then the internet disappeared. My father rushed into the room, grabbed my arm, and started yelling. Like I went against the script and almost ruined his whole brilliant plan. He dragged me down the hall and then threw me in the closet. I sat there for a couple of hours in the dark and cold. Suddenly I heard footsteps. It was Jamie. I begged him to open the door, but he curtly wished me a happy birthday and left. I was alone again. In the morning, my father let me out and began to congratulate me as if nothing had happened. It was so disgusting. I didn't want anything anymore. I just became the perfect doll for my father's show. I went live and got a lot of messages asking me to make a birthday cake. Fans wanted to see me blow out the candles. There were so many messages that my father agreed. But of course, according to his next plot, trashing the kitchen and throwing Jamie with food, I was troubled. One good thing about this day was that I could spend more time with Jamie. I wasn't even offended that he didn't open the closet. Maybe I really deserved it. When we started cooking, Jamie was clearly nervous. At one point, he took out almond flour and whispered, "Trust me." What was he doing? He knew about allergies. Although, I don't care. Dolls don't talk. I silently kneaded the flour into the dough and tasted it. The almonds made my throat swell, and I started to choke, just like when I was a kid. Then my mother saved me, and how I wished she were here. I didn't know what was going on. I think my father shouted something about medicine and disappeared. I couldn't see anything, but I felt like someone was holding me. I knew it was Jamie when I heard him yell at the guards, "Get out! She's dying!" Here's the ambulance. They were so fast. It was already very hard to breathe. I thought this was the end. And suddenly a breath. I somehow opened my eyes and saw my father trying to catch up with the ambulance in the distance. As soon as I came to my senses, the guys told me that they were all my fans and real doctors. It turned out that after the airing, they created a closed fan group. Together with Jamie, they developed a plan for the abduction. I was brought home to Jamie's, and there were my fans and lots of goodies. I went live and immediately told the whole truth. Jamie handed me my phone that night. My father called at least 100 times. I didn't pick up the phone and blocked his number. A chill ran down my spine. No, Dad, I'm never coming back to you.
That day, my friend Oliver dragged me to a restaurant to meet a rich businessman who had money to invest in our startup. The businessman agreed to give us 5 minutes of his time. We looked like rich people. Chic suits, high status watches. We ordered the most expensive dishes on the menu. But it was all fake. The watches were replicas, and the suits were for rent. Oliver pawned his grandmother's ring so that we could have dinner here. They'll find us out for sure. The businessman still didn't show up, and I was about to leave, when a girl came up to our table. How pretty she was. It turned out that we had been booked at the same table by mistake. Oliver immediately invited the girl to join us. She said yes. I haven't had a nice relationship with a girl in a long time, therefore, what if this was my chance? Her name was Harriet. She was supposed to have dinner with a friend, but she just canceled their meeting. We got talking, and in order to not lose my face, I said that I come to this restaurant, constantly. Like I went to a good college and that we have our own business, which brings in a lot of money. You should have seen Oliver's face. I was so used to playing a rich guy that I didn't recognize myself. By the end of the evening, I was so emboldened that I asked Harriet to meet again, and she agreed. And the rich guy didn't show up for the meeting. So it seemed like he wasn't gonna waste his time on us at all. On the way home, Oliver kept talking about the business, and that we could do it without being rich. Our project would start making money soon, but, of course, I didn't listen to him. I only thought about her. Oliver understood everything from my stupid smile, and he immediately decided to break off my whole buzz. A gorgeous girl has gorgeous requests, he confidently stated, and unfortunately, he was right, because I lied to her about everything. I have no bank account, no education, and the only thing I have is our startup. The date was set for the next day, but I wasn't gonna back it up no matter what. When I got home, my mother was already asleep. I moved in with her when her health got worse. The doctors said that they needed a kidney transplant. After my dad died, I had to take care of my mother, and I wanted to make her happy. We sold almost everything, but in the end, we collected the necessary amount, and now all that was left was to wait in line for the surgery. Soon, Harriet texted me. She thanked me for dinner and said that she loved the lobsters. Man, I set the bar too high. I started searching through the cabinets for anything else that could be quickly sold to raise at least some money, and I came across a box with my mother's stash for surgery. No, stop. The idea of taking money from there was very bad. And I hope Harriet doesn't just like me because I'm allegedly a rich dude. The next day, I took Harriet to the park and gave her a bunch of daisies. She asked, "Is this a joke?" Harriet was ready to leave, and I was scared. I lied that this was a hoax, and the real date would be at my favorite restaurant. We took a taxi, and I made up an excuse to stop near my house. I said I was helping the poor, and I needed to check on one of them. Harriet said it was very nice, but she'd rather wait in the car. Phew, close call. I flew into the apartment and reached into the closet for the stash. "I'll pay you back. Honestly, I hope Mom doesn't notice anything." At the restaurant, Harriet cheered up, and I was very happy about it. And days went by, and Harriet was really happy, because I always gave her expensive gifts. A week later, she started inviting me to hang out with her richy friends. The rich world just blinded me. but I kept thinking that the money was running out. One day, Oliver called me and told me that we were finally rich. Of course, he was joking, but yeah. The startup brought in the first money, which means that I will return everything I took from my mother's stash. But my entire share of the profit had been spent on an expensive bracelet for Harriet, which she begged for the same day. She was thrilled, and at the end of the evening, she invited me to a family dinner. She said that she had serious feelings for me, which meant it was time to meet her parents. Wow, I was beginning to think that she was only with me for the money. But getting to know your parents is an important step. Such trust. X day has arrived. We went to Harriet's parents' house, and I couldn't find a place for myself. I thought they'd figured me out in a heartbeat. In the end, it turned out to be much worse than I imagined. First, her family lived in a mansion, where I felt uncomfortable. And secondly, her dad immediately flooded me with questions. Where I study, who I work for, and what I do in life. I had to repeat the usual lie. I study at a prestigious college and work on a successful project. Harriet's mother immediately liked me, but her father looked at me suspiciously. After dinner, Harriet showed me to the house. Her father had a fancy office. We talked in the luxurious chairs, and for the first time that evening, I relaxed a little. Suddenly, Harriet got up and went to the safe. She asked me to be quiet. She was going to borrow some money from her dad. As I understand it, her father didn't spoil Harriet with money, so she stole it from his safe, a little at a time. What a familiar situation. I watched as she fearfully dialed the numbers on her father's safe. It was strange that such a large amount of money was kept under the PIN code 1111. When we said goodbye to Harriet's parents, her father took me aside and asked if I had prepared a gift for Harriet. Her birthday was coming up. I immediately lied that I had a necklace with large rubies. As luck would have it, Harriet heard this and started thanking me. What have I done? Where will I get the money from? I was as dark as a cloud when I got home, and then my mother decided to finish me off completely. She will get surgery in 2 days. The doctor called and said that there was a free place. They just needed her consent. Mother was so happy. She started to hug me, but I snapped at her. This stupid surgery was completely out of time. My mother asked what was wrong with me, but I just mumbled that everything was fine and ran into the room. I couldn't sleep at night. How could I get the money in 2 days? There was no point in asking Oliver, since he was handing over bottles to buy noodles to feed himself. The next morning, I went to several banks, but none of them wanted to give a loan to a ragamuffin with a weird startup. I was so desperate that I even considered robbing a bank. Stop. Harriet's rich dad wouldn't even notice if a few pathetic $1,000s go missing from his safe. The safe is full of money, and I remember the code. Why didn't I think of this before? I started preparing for the robbery. I made a mask out of the hat and figured out how to get around the cameras and security. That night, I went to Harriet's house. Luck was on my side. I waited until a couple of thugs had moved away from the wall and jumped over it. But there was a real giant with my club. My heart almost jumped out of my chest. As soon as he was gone, I ran to the front of the door. The office was on the second floor, where I crept on tiptoe. My hands were shaking with excitement as I typed in the code on the safe. That's it, Steve. There's no turning back. Now, you're not only a liar, but also a thief. When the safe was opened, I quickly stuffed the money into my pockets and went on the stairs. I was about to go down to the first floor, but Harriet's father was standing right next to me. Damn it! I tried to slip past him, but he heard footsteps and noticed me. The old man tried to grab hold of me and pulled off the mask. I fearfully rushed away and hit him with my shoulder, not on purpose. In the next second, he was falling head over heels. Suddenly, I heard a crunch. I wanted to see if he was alright, but there was no time. I might be caught, and I ran away. On the way home, I told myself that he had hurt himself and nothing terrible had happened to him, but I definitely got caught. He saw my face and he must have recognized me. Harriet called me the next morning. She cried for a long time and said that her father was attacked at night. My heart skipped a beat, and my hands shook with excitement. Suddenly, he had something to say. I nervously asked if the cameras caught the attacker, but I was lucky, because Harriet said you couldn't see his face, and that her father was in a coma, but the doctors didn't tell them to hope for the best. God, how lucky I am. If only she knew that her father was in a coma because of me. I was so scared that I even thought of turning myself into the police. But I knew it would only make things worse for everyone. I had to wait for Harriet's dad to wake up. Wait, what if he doesn't remember anything, and everything will just be as before? My mother's surgery went successfully, and she didn't notice the loss of money. We wanted this for so long, and I couldn't even be happy for my own mother. Oliver and I were already making good money in our business, and within a few days, I had quietly returned the stolen money to Harriet's father's safe. I was on pins and needles for a few weeks. I wanted Harriet to leave me alone, but in such a difficult situation, she needed support and gifts. Again. And then Harriet's father woke up. I did not want to go in to see him at all, but Harriet said he wasn't thinking straight, and he wasn't talking right now. She asked me to come, and I agreed. Her father looked bad. He could barely breathe, but he still found the strength to sit up and point a finger at me, whispering, "You." Fortunately, he didn't have time to finish. His eyes rolled back, and his mouth foamed. The doctors tried to resuscitate him. As we sat in the waiting room, Harriet anxiously waited for her father to get better, and I knew I was finished. I needed a distraction, so I suggested a snack. I brought us sandwiches and instant coffee from the vending machine. Last supper on the loose. Harriet was acting up again, and haughtily said that she didn't eat gluten. Who would doubt it? Suddenly, the doctor came out of the room and mournfully looked at Harriet. They couldn't do anything. Harriet slid to the floor and sobbed. At this moment, her mother rushed into the hospital. She ran up to her daughter and began to calm her down. Two states were fighting in me. I hated myself for what I had done. Even if it was an accident, I killed a man. Although, on the other hand, it was difficult to contain my joy, because no one would know my terrible secret. I took one last look at poor Harriet and left the hospital, and that was the end. We never met again. I went too far for her.
Hi, my name is Riley. I'm 15. Do you have many secrets? Has it ever happened that your whole life depends on your ability to keep your mouth shut? Watch the video to the end and find out how my father found out how much I was hiding from him and literally went off the rails with anger. Dad and I lived together. My mother died when I was very young, and I don't remember her. My dad is nice, but a little old-fashioned. No, he doesn't ride a horse or wear a top hat, but he's saying something out of date, like the values of my peers are wrong and we just sit in the phone, and it's very important to learn. But how else could he think? He's a teacher, and this is our secret. I go to the same school where he works. We agreed that at home we are a family, and at school we are a teacher and a student. And it makes him feel better, and no one will tease me with teacher's daughter. For some reason, everyone thinks that teachers' children get school grades for free. But believe me, this is not true. I study well, not because my dad is a teacher. I just work hard and I'm not completely stupid. And he's very proud of me. Most of all, I love history. But my best friend, Emmy, hates it. She says it's impossible to remember all these dates and stupid names. Emmy once asked me to do a paper on the Battle of Gettysburg for her. It's easy for me, but she's been suffering for the second week. So I did. She was so happy. She even gave me a ticket to the pool. Have you ever done one of the lessons for your classmates? Or maybe someone did your homework for you? Write it in the comments. Emmy told all her classmates that I could help with their study. She wanted to brag about how smart I was. But my classmates decided that they could ask me for help with difficult tasks, like a reference paper, then an essay, then a project. Easily, and a little more. And here I am, sitting with all these works until the morning and do not have time to do my lessons. If I start learning worse, my dad will be mad. He generally keeps me strict. Even my phone looks like it's from the last century, because my dad says that the phone is not a toy, but a means of communication. Everyone laughs when I take out my old brick. They ask what museum I stole it from. I tried to save money for a new one, but so far I haven't been able to. But at that moment, grades were more important. After all, the best students of the half year were soon to be named. I decided to work only for myself, and I managed not only to better my studies, but also to become the best student. The principal even shook my hand. Dad, that is our math teacher, already flushed with pleasure. The history teacher spoke about me separately. He said he'd be surprised if I didn't become a historian, and also released from the exam. What a reward! I was surprised and asked what I should do now, and he said that during the exam I could help him, hand out sheets of tasks and make sure that no one cheated. The questions on the exam were simple. I would have easily written them, but my classmates didn't seem to think so. They whispered together, trying to remember something. I didn't know what to do. It would be unfair to help my classmates, but it would be somehow disgusting not to help them. Dad always said that you should get your marks with your own mind, but he also taught me to help my friends. Emmy sat over her paper and almost cried. I realized that she didn't remember any dates. I made up my mind. While the teacher stood back, I showed everyone the important dates on my fingers. Wow! Our class passed the exam with amazing results. Even the school newspaper wrote about us. They said we were super cool historians, and all of us. The whole class was thanking me. I was given postcards, chocolates, passes to concerts, and Jay, the rich kid in our class, just gave me money. He said that now I could buy a normal phone. It was great to be popular with a new phone. And Jay came up to me after school and offered me some kind of business. I would do all the tasks for him, and he paid me, and he named a good sum. I thought about it and agreed. This, of course, was not very fair, but knowledge was the main thing, so I would benefit from it. My business started to thrive. I did 5 or 6 homeworks a day, and I was already thinking about how I would spend the money. But Dad was getting suspicious. I began to sit too long at other people's lessons, forgetting about my own. I was no longer the best student in my class, and I often answered at random in class or was silent. My father tried to find something out, but I told him that my love for school was no longer mutual. So a month passed. I was tired, to be honest, but money was more important. Emmy told me that I looked terrible, but I didn't care. Suddenly, at school, my father called me into his office. I thought like a teacher, but it turned out that no. He shoved all the works I did for others under my nose. It turned out that he did a real investigation. He even went through my things. And this was my dad, who had said many times that another person's property was infallible. Tell me, do your parents also break the rules that they themselves make up? And then Dad talked to Jay. At first, he tried to protect me, but as soon as they promised him that I would get the punishment and not him, he informed my father that I had been doing homework for him for a month. Traitor! My father took me home from school and told me for a long time how bad I was, how I prevented my classmates from getting valuable knowledge for money, and how I was a disgrace to my family. Then, everything was terrible. My father took my phone and put me under house arrest until I could fix my grades. I tried to resist, started a row. In the end, he took me by the scruff of the neck and forced me into the room. This was my dad who said that any conflict should be resolved peacefully, as if he was replaced. It was so creepy. I tried to justify myself, to explain something to him, but he wouldn't listen. He left, slamming the door. The next day, he drove me to school in complete silence. It was even worse at school. Jay told everyone that I was the daughter of our mathematician. Daddy didn't keep quiet either and told the teachers who I did my homework for. Can you imagine? Not only did my classmates find out that I was cheating on them, but they all got their grades lowered because of my father. It was lucky that nothing was entered in the personal file. I tried to cry to Emmy, but she turned away from me too. I no longer had a friend. None of my classmates spoke to me. Everyone tried to sit further away, and someone even put chewed gum in my backpack. But I wanted to help, and now I was being attacked from all sides, both my father and my classmates. I broke down and told my father what I thought, that he turned me into an outcast and that if he'd bought me a phone, nothing would have happened and then I was getting overwhelmed. I yelled that if my mother were alive, she wouldn't let me be bullied. I was crying, screaming, and he hugged me and suddenly began to apologize. He said that he was too strict with me because he was very afraid of losing me, that he wanted me to be honest with him. That went too far. And then he whispered that maybe my mother really wouldn't be happy that he was being so hard on me. He brought me up wrong, and it was all his fault and only his. But then I began to protest that no, I was also wrong, and he brought me up well. And let him live, please. So we had a long conversation with him. He wasn't sure what to do to fix it either. And in the end, we decided that I would go to another school. And he wouldn't be my teacher anymore, just my dad. Learning is learning, and we have no one else. Why do we need to quarrel? The new school is great. There are good guys here. I quickly made new friends. They sometimes tease me that I don't let anyone copy off of me. They think it's because I'm too correct. I'm the best student in my class again. We also have an amazing historian. He's taking an advanced course in American history, and he promised to take me next year. And my classmates say that I was very lucky with my dad. He's cool and lets me do a lot of things. Dad really began to allow me more, to ask what I want to buy, and stopped refusing something cool but useless. The cheating story is now our secret. Sometimes it is very difficult to understand your parents. It seems that they are either crazy or aliens, especially when they lose their temper. But the solution can be found. I'm very happy that my dad and I were able to do this.